Hi, this is Gilbert S. with the Unnamed Game Co.
And this is Jordan T with Zone Fighter Games.
How are you doing today, Jordan?
I'm I'm doing okay. I got a 4-day weekend and I'm just starting day two.
4 days? I hate you. I hate you so much. I had three.
It's that it's that government job, man.
A little bit frozen there, Jordan. Starting up already. Hit the
Yeah,
heat out there, isn't it, huh?
a little bit, but I think our local ISP is dealing with it. So
Yeah. Anyways, today in our wonderful episode, we will be talking about game conventions because the pandemic is still raging, but people are completely ignoring it. So we are going out and doing game conventions again.
wow.
I mean, people are gonna go, and I'm not gonna say you shouldn't or you shouldn't go. You should go with whatever you feel safest for yourself, because at the
It's
end of the day, it is a free country, and I don't care what you do as long as you don't go near me. If you decide to expose yourself to a bunch of COVID,
it's funny you mentioned that because it's the big like state convention is happening right now. So it's Phoenix Fan Fusion. Because we can't say Comic Con because the guys who run San Diego legally own that and they yell at people who use it, which
yeah, it's strange
sure,
that the name Comic Con cannot be used by
yeah,
nearly anybody anymore,
yeah.
because there's
But
the Comic Con.
yeah, I was an avid convention goer for a good while in my late high school years and early college years. So what with the aforementioned Pandini happening, and everyone's like, "Yeah, are you gonna go?" And I'm like, "No." Because being in an underground bunker filled with a bunch of people who, let's be honest, needed to be told how to wash their hands 6 months ago seems like a good way to get something.
Yeah, and it might not be COVID. It might be something else.
It's got many names, Pax Pox, Con Crud.
I think
I think I
everybody's
heard
had con crud in their life. I don't think
my
there's
favorite.
a person who's been like, "Oh, I didn't suffer from con crud at the end of it." Like it's that sniffles, cough thing you get at the end.
Yeah,
Um, that being
you just
said,
you.
yeah, I was a Comic Con person myself. I went. I first when I'm 37, 36, 37 this year. I went to I moved to San Diego when I was 13, and that was the summer I showed up, and my father was reading a newspaper article about Comic Con, and he said, "Hey, you should go." And I'd never been, I'd never heard of it, but I'm a teenager, and I was my first summer in San Diego. I had no friends, so I went to Comic Con. I walked in, bought a pass, and enjoy Comic Con.
Yeah,
Because this is the way it used to be. It used to be half the size because the convention center has expanded itself. There was not nearly as many hotels down there. You could just walk in on a random Thursday and buy 4 day passes. And it was like that for like 5 years after that until it started to really pick up. But like
yeah.
a lot of
It
people tell me, yeah.
it wasn't like a religious gathering for some
Yeah, a
people.
lot of people used to be like, "Oh, I used to be a hardcore Comic Con person," and but like it changed, and then people are like, "It's not crowds are just the norm." Like crowds are not the norm. It's become the norm. It's not fun. It used to be that I could walk from one part of the hallway to the other part of the hallway in like 10 minutes. Now it's
Yeah.
like you spend an hour just trying to cross. It's impossible. It's summer. Everybody is sweating in costumes, and it smells weird. And in all honesties, nerds, I love you all, but there are people who have legit reasons to have uh, funk. It's not it. There are people who have glandular issues and other things. Then there's the other. There's some of us in our fandom who don't shower.
I just don't.
They just don't, and it's not, and that's not, and for those people, what the heck?
Yeah, like yeah, like I'm not judging, I'm not, pointing or shaming anybody, but there's like I said, 2 years ago, we had to explain to a large group of people in this country how to wash their hands. We had to give them step-by-step instructions, and it became abundantly clear that a lot of people just didn't. They just never washed their hands.
After learning how many people are shocked at how to wash your hands properly, you sit there going like, I don't know if I want to shake hands anymore.
I don't. I've been doing the elbow touch with people.
I do the elbow touch too, but there's so many people that are offended, and I work with contractors, old school guys that are like, you have to handshake because you can tell a lot by a handshake. So I'm like, okay, cool, we handshake, and then I go hand sanitize my hands.
Yeah.
But no,
It's
it's not to shame anybody, but it's notoriously known for people in our industry, especially the male variety of our kind, that they don't shower and they don't enjoy it. It's like they get so wrapped up in the fandom of it that they go from early morning to late night and they're just going and then they just don't, and it's understandable because I've fallen to that pit trap once or twice. Like where you just like you're going from 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, you hit it up until 1 or 2 in the morning, you sleep for 3 hours, and somewhere in there you just don't have the time to shower because if you do, you have to get there's all this. It's not on your mind because
yeah,
you're not there for social situations. You're there to exercise your nerddom, and unfortunately, when you're in really packed, tight spaces like a Comic Con, God, it's noticeable. It's so noticeable.
hmm
And you're just like, oh, please, just. And you can't say, like, please take 2 feet away from me. Not because you can't, because you could say that, but it's because there's no room to move 2 feet away from you. Like, there's just not room. And you can't
it's
escape. You can't escape.
it's just you can't. And I've been in my fair share of moments where it's like, oh, you smell like something that died.
Yeah, and it's like, do I get out of the line? Do I lose my spot? Is it worth it? No, I will stay here. But that line is an hour and a half. Oh my god, I'm gonna die. And then you finally get the thing you've been waiting for an hour and a half, which is like a toy or something, and you're like, "Hey, I got it," but my senses are completely dead.
Yeah, and I mean, like it's pretty bad, and it's pretty bad in Arizona because around this time of year, it's like 100 and something degrees out. So like right now, there's people that are standing out in line in 92-degree weather, no humidity, just hot.
But I mean, it's not everybody that's like that, but it
No,
does.
it's not.
But there's no way you can do it because it's hot and you're gonna be walking through it and you're gonna be sweating and everybody's gonna be funky. But God, that's the reason I just can't do it. I just can't do Comic Con anymore. That's one of the three reasons I can't do Comic Con anymore. The other two involve like the people are just awful. They've become awful over time. Like it used to be a small community of us that go and you'd see everybody and everyone was like, hey, it's your friend, and we'd go to art galleries and we'd be like, and then when we get to the masquerade ball on the end of the year, and it was just fun, and we all knew a lot of us knew each other because we all
It's
like we were
the
regulars.
culture. The culture's different now.
Yeah, the
It's
culture has
very
significantly changed over the years, and it's not it's fine right now. It is its own new culture, and that's the new crowd that enjoys it. It's not for me. I don't want to go anymore. I was one summer I decided, okay, I'm not going to be going anymore, but I'm going to go. I took a job working security for it, and that was the summer of Twilight. That was that
oh
was hell on earth. That was
oh
hell on earth.
oh.
That was the summer that somebody got stabbed.
I mean, when I started going to conventions, I ended up hanging out with a lot of people who like worked in the background or were big in the panels or worked security, and like eventually it turned into like one of the guys I knew was running a big local convention, and like it got big, but then like I wasn't involved in any of it, but like I started hearing from other people that like he would catch a bunch of flack because he didn't do X or Y. And then now all these years later, like all this stuff's coming about all these people who like were talking shit about him,
Yeah.
and they started running their own convention, but now like police got involved in stuff. Allegedly. I can't say for sure, but like allegedly, he was doing some stuff that could reasonably put him in jail for a long time.
Yeah. Um, and it's now becoming a thing where like conventions are there's some conventions that are very concerned about safety, and then there are
And
some conventions that are still running old school.
they just don't. They just don't.
Which
And
actually brings us to the topic of the day. We are talking about game conventions. The reason we brought all this stuff up is because we are talking about game conventions today. And I have some share of my experiences in game conventions. I've gone out there and I've actually visited a number of ones. There are rumors of like ones that are say pretty good cons to go visit. We will be talking about some of those cons. We'll talk about some of the big cons. I've never been to a single big con. I know what they are. I, for one, a lot of people who come talk to me, they're like, how do you know about all these cons? And it's like, well, you look it up. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what to look for. And so this is what this is for. So for those of you who have never sort of been to a con or know what cons are or know the difference between any of the cons, this is what we're doing here, because I do a lot of research. I have nothing better to do because I am a game designer, and the only way for me to playtest is to go out and run games at cons. And we'll also talk about that too, because there's some cons that are really easy to do that, and there's some cons that you just don't want to try.
mm-hmm.
That being said, I know West Coast cons. I don't know East Coast cons as much as well, like Dragon Con. I know Dragon Con's really popular. I know that there's a number of really good cons over there. So for those of you who are game designers like myself, the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is Metatopia.
Yeah,
Metatopia
we
is
talked about this a little bit.
Metatopia is run by a group that runs 3 cons throughout the year, typically. And they run all these cons out of New Jersey. One of the cons is a designers con, and the other 2 cons are regular game cons. The designers con is very different. You actually have to when you buy your ticket, you apply, and what they do is they assign you game slots. You get a 30-minute to an hour game slot, and you actually have a choice between, do you just want feedback? Do you want to run it? Do you want to do something? Like there's specific things that they're asking for. And what they do is, you as designers, you get a discount if you go decide to playtest for other people. And other people can go to this con for cheaper if they just playtest for other people. So, like, if you just want to attend and play new games that are now coming out, it's great. For the last couple of years, it's not been around. They did an online version last year. I think they're going to go full on person this year, but it depends on how things are looking with the pandemic. But I was intended to go 1 year, but my flight got my airplane, airplane I was going to take back to transfer to another airport, had mechanical issues and I couldn't fly out, and then the change ticket was going to cost me $600, and it was all sorts of hullabaloo that I was like, okay, I can't go. But I was set to have 3, you get like 3 sessions, and every company can only bring like 1 person, so you can't be like your 6 of your friends are going to come around and play your one game 6 different times. They really try to watch it because they try to make it so it's fair. You only get so much help. But it's designers designing for designers, and it's great. You get good feedback. A lot of good games have come out of that convention. It's not only for TTRPGs, it's for board games, card games, and all sorts of things in between. So it's a wonderful convention. It happens in November every year. They usually there's a lot of people who say they're doing Metatopia and then will go to PAX Unplugged, which is happening usually in like Philadelphia, I believe. So
that's what I was trying to do, before, everything shut down. I was like, hey, I was gonna skip like all the in-state conventions. I was actually gonna travel out of state to go to PAX. I was gonna wander around, hand out, some one-page games. It was gonna be great. And then
yeah, no, I had a full 2020. I had a full schedule of just game conventions. I had no plans for vacation. I had nothing. I was just going to take all my vacation time that I get from my job, which is like 2 weeks, and I was just going to use it for like 3-day, 4-day weekends every single time and just go places and playtest and run games and playtest and run games. That's all I was going to do. So but Metatopia is the November con, and then usually like a week goes by before um, you hit a PAX Unplugged. So there are people who will fly out to Metatopia and then just stay there for the whole for the week, and then wait till the next weekend, which will be PAX Unplugged. I've talked to many designers who say that this is our plan. We hit the East Coast in November, so we can hit both of the PAX Unplugged and we can hit the Metatopia. That was before pandemic, but that was the way that it rolled because it was looking like you do that in the East Coast. So you do the plays. You go to Gen Con in August, and then you go to that in November. But if you were to think of it like in a cycle, you start in November and you hit up Metatopia with a playtest run, and you try to get your finished product rolling. Then you publicize it out in PAX Unplugged. Then you run Kickstarters at the beginning of the year, and then you finish the Kickstarter. You roll out production for 6 months, and then you have it released by Gen Con in August. If you play it right, that's how you should be running your games as a small designer. Yeah. It makes complete sense. There's some logic to doing it that way. And then you spend the next portion running and building up the next game, Metatopia, run it again. And you could probably do a full big release every year if you're smart like this. Because before Metatopia, there's some other cons. Mm-hmm. Some of my favorites are, and I'm just gonna put none of these are in. Breakout Con, up in Toronto, is an amazing convention. Orca Con in Seattle, or near Seattle, and of course the infamous Big Bad Con. Generally, these fall in, but not this year. But these have fallen in past. January at Orca Con, March Breakout Con, which is now going to be falling in July this year, and Big Bad Con in October, which is also the virtual one, is falling in July as well this year, I believe. But if you have those 3 windows right there, and they're very highly inclusive. They have safety policies that they talk about. They have you have to agree to sort of following, being a decent human being, and a lot of the runners have had history of being part of conventions where abuse takes place, and they try to avoid that as much as possible in those cons. So if you want a safe con, in my opinion, Orca, Big Bad, and Breakout Con are 3 of the safest cons you can go to.
Good to know.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add into this, buddy? Here I am just rapidly talking.
Yeah, but before our viewers, decide to start making travel plans, look at your local scene. We have the Arizona Game Fair out here that every year it takes place not too far from me, and it was great. Most of it is literally just you roll up. There's some local shops. Always support local. There's big open tables that everyone's playing a board game. Just around the corner in the convention center, they have the big RPG room. The plan was the next time it came around, I was going to try to sign up to do a playtest table. But between me not having a job and not feeling comfortable enough with everything going on, if I don't feel comfortable enough, why would I expect people to sit at the table with me who are also uncomfortable?
Yeah. No, it's 100%.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of local conventions here in San Diego, in California as well. There's PacificCon. There's DundraCon. There's not really anything really strong. And then there's of course the LA conventions, which are the Orcas, the OrcaCon trio, which happens in Memorial Day, Labor Day, and President's Day weekend every year. It's a 3-day con up in LA, hosted usually at the Hilton in LA, LAX Hilton. DundraCon happens in February, usually every year in the Bay Area. And PacificCon happens usually in the Bay Area as well as San Jose. KublaCon is the big one, which happens every year in Labor Day weekend in May. KublaCon. It's very board game heavy, so if you're a TTRPG person, it plays out throughout the whole hotel. So the whole hotel is pretty much So there's rooms that are taken, and then there's just rooms that are like part of the convention. So you'll like sometimes you'll be assigned to run a TTRPG in a random like hotel room. It's all set. It's got tables. It's all set up. It's proper. Like
Oh,
the bed's been removed. Like, but
okay.
it's an open room. It's not like it's locked or anything. But yeah, it's weird.
That rubs me the wrong way. Like I said, I've been enough weird conventions where stuff happens and goes down.
It's such a large hotel room, and there's a lot of safety people walking around. So Kubla Khan's
Good,
a pretty safe con. Um,
good.
but it leans heavier on board game than TTRPG, so it's not like my personal type of con. Um, and but yeah, it's such a large con, so like the main floors get taken up and tables get taken up so far. So most of the bottom floor is like the main floor where all the big rooms are. That's mostly board games. So the smaller TTRPG stuff goes upstairs to like random rooms around the hotel room. But
Good.
it's fine. It's not a problem. That's where all the TTRPGs take place. So I played Masks and other things like that. And there's a lot of local guys running cool games and stuff. But I ran my playtest, so like nobody. Most of the time, if you're running playtests for cons, people wonder about that. I've asked some people, "How do you playtest?" I'm like, you just go to a con, you buy your ticket, which is like can be anywhere from $50 to $100 for the weekend or whatever it is. Um, and then you just sign up to a game in the DTRPG circles. Um, 2 to 4 hours usually, 2.5 to 5 hour blocks depending. OrgaCon is a 2.5 block. Most places
Hmm.
do a 2 hour block, and you just sign up by blocks. So you say, "Oh, I'll take 4 hours," and then depending on the con, they'll have like they'll assign it to you, or you'll request a time zone, or you'll say like, "I'm only available in these periods." Um, the tricky part of signing up for a game is like there's also like you don't know the schedule sometimes beforehand, so you're signing up and you're like, I have no clue, and then you end up with a game and you're like, oh, but there's a really cool game over there I want to play. That's
Yeah,
happened
it's
to
a
me
lot of
so many times.
be sure to like look into the schedule, see who's going to be there,
Yeah.
ask around, like
Yep.
make friends.
If you're lucky, because sometimes they don't have the schedule out, so you want to be early because you want to be like, I want to grab my, I want to make sure I get my spaces and I'm good, like I'm set. But then you're also like, but if you go too early and there's nobody you scheduled anything, you're like, oh man, that game is right next to mine.
Yeah,
Darn.
so you end up being like, oh, I want to play this weird cipher game about a chocolate factory, and then you're like, oh, but I'm playtesting that.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I gotta do work, but you're there for fun. And honestly, I know some people like to do hardcore playtesting at conventions, but like 3 to 4 sessions is more than enough. Like, go enjoy a con, build community. A lot of times you should be out there talking and networking and discussing and being part of the community. If you spend
Hmm.
all your time in playtesting, it's not that doesn't help you in the community.
Yeah,
It doesn't help you
be
build. It doesn't help you
be
do a
a
lot of those
be a
things.
person and a designer.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not that I'm trying to like. It's just 3 to 4 is enough. That's 12 hours of gaming. If you do a full 4 hour session, like you're taking up 9 hours of your week, and really there's only maybe about 10 hours of playability every day, maybe. And you still have to take lunches and breaks, and you still have to like mental health check yourself.
Yeah,
So
go see a panel. Go to the shops. Go to the artist alley. Like
100%. So like yeah, go have some fun. It's not like don't overextend yourself. Don't look at the schedule and go, well, I'm gonna go out here and play test. And I'm like, I'm gonna sign up for 6 games. And I'm just like, dude, just chill it out. It's okay. It's okay.
right.
I did that though. See, that's the reason I'm not saying this out of like, oh, I'm saying this because I'm just this person that's taught. No, I've done it. So don't do it. Because you miss out on so many things, and there's games out there too. And if you see a playtest, sometimes they'll some cons will require you to say yours is a playtest. I say that if yours is a playtest, click this box so that people know they're not walking into a completely finished game. But there's some playtesting out there, and they see, and if you know it's a playtest, go play it. It's fun to talk to other designers, especially ones
Mhm.
that are coming up as well. You learn so many things about cool games, and you get to play with some really cool people. It's amazing. So many things you learn. from just like jumping into
Yeah,
playtests.
pick their brains.
Yeah, you pick brains, you get to see each other. There's nothing wrong, and like I believe that design is an artist thing. So like, we learn from other artists. Like, I have a game that I like very much. So it was the reason I got into game design. But I started reading Legacy, which has helped me understand my game a little bit better. My game is very different than Legacy, but there's similar concepts behind it. And I'm like, okay, cool. I see what they're doing here. I like that it can be done this way. So maybe I can, but I prefer to do it this way. But it makes me look at the game in a different perspective that I hadn't actually looked at it before. So, what's your favorite con of all time, Mister Jordan, sir?
Um, I think it's probably mostly because it doesn't exist anymore. It was probably the Phoenix Comic Con where I finally got a lightsaber.
That's cool.
Yeah, I finally had the extra money, and at the convention, I think that was when I just started deciding, like, for like bigger ones, like huge ones that are like, we're gonna like possibly make an announcement or something, because like city and state conventions kind of have an opportunity to do that. Um, I started only going on Saturdays, so it was saving me a ton of money. So I ended up just buying myself an orange lightsaber, and I love it. It's currently under my bed as I ponder where I'm gonna hang it. I've had it for like 4 years, but
Hey, as long as it makes you happy is what's important.
yeah, stuff gets away from me. It's a chore.
Comic cons are actually interesting places. You can actually do some playtesting at certain comic cons. There's a very like Comic Cons have a very umbrella feel. Like they're the idea that you can be
It's a
everything in a
very
Comic Con.
The overlap is huge.
Yeah, like I went to Comic Con for years, and I'd hang out on the mezzanine floor, which is where they played games. Like that's all they did. Like I would just show up to the game section and just hang out. I actually entered into a Risk 2020 Acquire tournament back in the day when they were still underneath the original ownership, and they were you had to qualify, but there was a final table that was gonna play on the bottom floor on Comic Con floor at the Hasbro booth, and if you won it, they was gonna pay for a full trip to Gen Con. And that was the first time I actually heard of Gen Con. They were gonna pay for hotel, everything, and I3. I decided instead of playing in the Risk 2020 game, because I qualified for both. I want to play in the Acquire game because I felt like that was the more challenging one to play in Acquire with guys who've been playing it for 25 years. I just learned it that weekend, so I was like, I'm gonna go for the biggest challenge. I'm gonna play in Acquire with the 20-year veterans. And I just remember there was a point in that game where I hesitated, and I always will remember it. And I3 was the number. Like if I had played it, I would have merged three together, and then I would have demolished mine, and I would have had the spending power to move mine around. But they did it to me instead, and I just always remember that round because that was where we had a convergence of three. I don't know if you ever played this before, but some people who are watching this will like, no, Acquire. But there was three corporations, all connected by this I3. And if I had just taken it out, I could have demolished two of them, and then I could have demolished mine and taken the money, and then been able to put money into other things. But I didn't do it. I screwed that up, and that was the thing that it locked. And then because of that, they built mine up so much that I couldn't get my money out of it. So I ended up locked up in the biggest corporation, which is the worst thing you can do, because if you get locked up in the biggest corporation in that game, you just get stuck because you have no money to buy anything else, and everybody else keeps making money everywhere else. So I kind of got stuck. I still was able to hang. I got second place, but I could have been first.
Oh,
It haunted me to this day. I would have had a full, and I was in my early 20s. I had no money. I was a theater artist, so being able to go to Gen Con, hotel paid for, everything, and play in a national tournament for Acquire was amazing. If I flew out there, I could have still participated in the national tournament because I was
yeah.
still second place. But I didn't have the money to do that. I was too poor.
Right, because who does?
Yeah, when you're 20, you don't have any money to go to these cons, and that's the hard part. But there's a lot of for people out there. There's a lot of opportunities to volunteer. There's a lot of opportunities to share rooms. There's a lot
Go
of
with
cons.
friends. Like,
There's a lot of cons that will help you find like room shares. It's true.
yeah,
Um,
go with friends. Like, meet people.
yeah,
And then that following year, when it comes to when that convention rolls around again, if you stayed in contact and hung out with those people outside of the convention, there's a 90% chance they're like, hey, did you want to room with us this year?
yeah. Also, if you meet people, you can meet people at your local cons that are like to travel. That happens a lot. There's a lot of people you show up in con and you just talk to people at tables and they're like, oh yeah, I definitely go to Breakout Con every year. And you'd be like, cool, I can afford my plane ticket, but I don't have a place to stay. And you'd be like, stay with us, because there's so many nice people in our industry.
Yeah.
One of the coolest, like, my opinion, in my personal opinion, I think Big Bad Con is one of the coolest communities. Because the Big Bad community is so, like, welcoming and they try to raise money to help people to come to con. Like, they will help fly people out to conventions because they're like, we understand that people can't afford to go, and this community helps build people up. And Sean Knitter, who runs it, is an amazing person. And if there's one con you should go to in the future, in my opinion, it is Big Bad Con out of the Bay Area. They are my favorite convention of all time. As a game player, designer, everything. The energy at Big Bad Con is probably one of the best energies you'll have. And they even had like a POC dinner one night, which is really cool. Like they just had a
That's
bunch of POC people just get together
just like a
and
mixer.
yeah, a little mixer, but it was like a lot of us in the industry, so it was like nice to like it was just a full tables of just people, and it was great. It was an amazing event, and got good food, and we
Yeah.
sat down next to a bunch of people that are like, oh, and, just talking, and
Yeah.
it's great.
And I think like the big holy grail of game conventions, isn't it Game Spiel?
Okay, so the big cons. Let's talk about big cons.
Yes.
Okay, the bigs. Everyone wants to always know what are the bigs. Okay, officially, Gen Con is not the biggest. Gen Con is big, but it's
It's
not. It's like
cool.
it's humongous. It's considered one of the largest overarching cons. Like it's big, as in the fact that it's got all of the umbrellas, but it's not the biggest.
Yeah.
Um, Essen Con in Essen is considered the largest board game convention. Period. Like period. And I believe, and don't quote me on this one, I believe the UK Game Expo is considered one of the largest expos. Like, so those two are the largest. And if you're playing like, and Norwegian LARPs can get insanely large. Like Norwegian LARPs can
But
get
they got
large.
space.
Yeah, because they've got the space. But in terms of like the biggies in the United States, it's Gen Con, it's Origins, and it's all of the PAXs. I don't.
Especially Unplugged.
Yeah, I think
Plugged is like their whole point is it's non
non-video game. Most of the
yeah.
PAXs are video game. PAX East, PAX West, PAX South. I think PAX North there's a PAX North, right? Yeah, there's a PAX North.
Yeah, and then
I know
there's
where
just
East and
Unplugged.
West are. Like East is in New York, South is in Texas, West is in Seattle. West is the OG. Like
Yeah, and
everyone always wants to know, like what's the original PAX? It's West.
I
Then
think
PAX
North
Unplugged
is
goes
just
East.
in. I think North is all I like. My brain is like I think it's in like Michigan.
Yeah, but there's four PAXs plus the Unplugged. And
Yeah,
then Origins is big. That's I think in St. Louis or something like that. And then it's Big Bad. And then it's not Big Bad. It's Gen Con. Gen Con's the biggie. The biggie. Um,
I would like to go to Gen Con at some point. Just
the
just just to say I went.
the statement is in the belief that there's people who make all of their money as game people at Gen Con every year. Like they don't you make some money in other places, but you make majority of your sales at Gen Con every year. And I've
I
been told
can
that from a number of people.
I can see that because Gen Con has the most buzz.
Yeah.
Gen Con is kind of like San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, it's huge, it's tremendous. It's not the best convention,
Yeah,
but
there's
it's
it's also a convention that has gaming that runs 24/7.
right.
It has all of the unique weird stuff that comes out. You can make money as a GM at Gen Con. you could charge money. Like what they do, their system is simple. You put the game up, you charge whatever fee you want to charge, and that's how we roll. Like, and gosh darn it, do it. Gen Con is an unwieldy beast, and when it went up last year, I think there was a lot of people that were like, "You're running Gen Con in the pandemic." Oh, that does not fun. There was a lot of like anger towards that.
I can't imagine like again like an experienced con goer and you're an experienced con goer and it's like, hey, there's a terrible disease going around. Do you want to go to this place where you have a 90% infection rate for, just vague flu? No, I'm good.
Yeah, or and it's worse in TTRPG because we talk in close proximities, and
And in some instances, you're handing off like dice to each other to use. Quick sidebar: wash your dice.
yeah, nobody touches my dice, so I will roll them. I will not wash my.
Right, but still, for those of you watching at home, all three of you, wash your dice.
And the dog. We never forget
And
the
the dog.
dog.
Wash your dog.
No, we're talking about the dog that watches the show.
Oh yeah, and the dog. It's all three of you. Be a good boy and go wash your dice.
With that being said, is there anything else we want to add?
Make friends. Be a human. Conventions are fun.
And if you have a issue with, smell, and we're not shaming you, it's totally okay. And I did see a sign once at a convention that put that like as if you smell, don't come into this room for games. And I was like, that's really fucking offensive because
It is.
that's not something like we're saying this as when we mentioned this earlier, like we want to make clear, like we understand that there's glandular issues. There are people who have just it's problematic and that's just the way it is, hormonal, glandular, whatever it is. But there are people who purposely do not shower or care to shower, and they know full well that they stink, and they don't want to do anything about it. And those people, I'm not happy with. Yeah, that's what this is all about.
Like, there's people that have, executive dysfunction or whatever. No, there's just people that, that wake up, simply choose not to,
put on deodorant.
Yeah, they don't groom themselves.
Yeah. Because they, for whatever reason, don't believe that they need to smell nice for social situations, and that's fine. But
sometimes it's just something that doesn't even process.
And it could be cultural. And I'm not gonna front you if that's a cultural thing. Fine, so be it. But for those of you that are purposely just ignoring your hygiene because you don't care, please care. Just care a little bit when you go to cons.
Consider others.
Yes.
Consider others.
Just be considerate of others. I think this is the important thing that we need to do more of in gaming. Just be considerate of others. I'm Gilbert S. with the Unnamed Game Co. We'll leave it at that. I think that's a good way to end this. Please be considerate to others and spade and neuter your cats.
I'm Jordan from Team Zone Fighter Games, and
stay gold.
You know where your cat is.
You know where your cat is. Stay gold.
Stay gold.